kinds of encounters that are in my film are based, in part, on the experiences of a kind of cross-section of people throughout the country who claim to have had second-kind encounters, first-kind encounters, and third-kind encounters.
All I was interested in was Einstein's theory of relativity and space-time continuums, and I just love the idea that if they were truly taken off our planet, they could come back the same age as when they were hijacked in the 1920s or 30s or 40s. But I didn't have any backstory, or I didn't have any other motivation other than it was really cool to have the people from Flight 19. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if they came back at the end, and then a whole new group of astronauts go off with them.
Do you take it seriously?
I do take it seriously, I really do. I don't know if I believe that UFOs are extraterrestrial, because I'm the kind of person who has to have a close encounter myself before I can positively say this is something that I'm going to get on a soapbox and proselytize and convince people, they're out there and we should be receptive to it. Until that time, I have to take sort of a third-party, position. But I think there have been enough sober reports from very reliable, multiple witness individuals who have all seen these things all over the world, not just in this country, but all through Canada, all through France, all through Brazil, Australia, you name it. They're really, for every, in a way, for me, for every couple hundred square miles of land in this country, there are UFO reports.
Stephen is the child of American technology and American movies and American suburbia.
As a kid growing up, I never looked up and saw science fiction as being tentacled and, dark and frightening. It was always very bright and happy.
So one night, when I was a young child, I don't remember what age I was, but we were living in New Jersey, so I must have been around 5 or 6 years old. And my dad woke me up in the middle of the night, and he said, "Come with me." And I was really groggy. I remember my dad got me in the car. He said, "I have a surprise for you." And he drove me a while, and we drove to this field. And we got out of the car, and I kept saying, "Dad, what time is it?" And he kept saying, "It's the middle of the night." He didn't say what they said. It's the middle of the night. And there were all these people in this field, several dozen. And my dad brought a picnic blanket, and he put the blanket out on this grassy knoll, and we laid on the blanket, and we looked up at the sky. There was this fantastic meteor shower, like the Perseus meteor shower that we have sometimes. And I just remember looking up at the sky, and every 15 to 20 seconds, there was a fantastic of light across the sky. And I think that was my first introduction to the world beyond the Earth. That probably first impregnated me with wanting to tell stories not of this world.
He's relaxed and calm and funny, and without anyone knowing how, he makes sure that you do everything he wants you to do.
Is he a dictator on the set?
No, not at all. I mean, you have no idea where the authority is coming from, except somehow, by the end of the day, everything that Stephen wanted to do is done exactly the way he wanted it done.
And at the end of the story, Richard Dreyfuss' character, who sort of acts like a child throughout the whole picture, because he returns to his childhood to actively pursue his dream at the expense of his responsibilities to his family. And maybe it's the child in all of us that the aliens were more interested in observing and investigating than the astronauts who were trained to communicate with a higher intelligence. The difference in when I wrote the story in my 20s and what I would have done today is, I don't think today, with being a dad of 7 kids, I would have let my Richard Dreyfuss character actually get on the mothership and abandon his family to this alien obsession and leave the planet. I'm not sure I would have done that today, but in my 20s, it was something that was absolutely would have been my choice. Get me on that mothership. I'm curious. I want to explore along with these guys. George came back from Star Wars a nervous wreck. He didn't feel Star Wars came up to the vision that he had initially had. He felt he had just made this little kids movie, and he came to Mobile, Alabama, where I was shooting on this humongous set. And George hung out with me for a couple of days and looked around and said, "Oh my God, your movie's going to be so much more successful than Star Wars. This is going to be the biggest hit of all time. I can't believe the set, and I can't believe what you're getting, and oh my goodness." He said, "I'll tell you what, I'll trade points with you. You want to trade some points?" He said, "I'll tell you what, I'll give you 2.5% of Star Wars if you give me 2.5% of Close Encounters." So I said, "Sure, I'll gamble with that. Great." And I think I came out on top of that bet. I think I did a lot better than George. Both of our movies were wildly profitable. Close Encounters made so much money, rescued Columbia from bankruptcy, and the most money I had ever made on a movie before was from Close Encounters. Close Encounters was just a meager success story, and Star Wars was a phenomenon. And of course, I was the happy beneficiary of a couple of net points in that movie, which I am still seeing money on today. Pauline Kael's, she had a radio show. Off the air, she said to me, now you have, I hear 1941 coming out. She said, well, we're all waiting for that one. You know you're not going to get off as easy as you get off with your first two films. We're waiting for you to fail. And in so many words, she pretty much just said to me, you know, we've got our knives sharpened because this better be the greatest thing anybody's ever made or you're going to go down in flames. And I'll never forget her warning, almost like sight unseen, whether it's a good picture or a bad picture, it's your turn to be slapped. And when we previewed the film in Dallas, Texas, it was received by the audience. 800 people couldn't stop laughing. And I thought, oh my God, I have a comedy hit. And for the first time in my life, a comedy set piece actually worked and the audience couldn't stop laughing. The second that scene was over and the actual movie began, there were about 4 laughs in the next 2 hours, and that was it. And I think what killed the comedy was the amount of destruction and the sheer noise level. The audience, and I was watching in the preview, that many people were watching the film with their hands over their ears, holding their ears because they were being assaulted by all the noise coming out of the speakers. And I think it's not that we dubbed it too loud. I just blew too much stuff up. I was kind of riding the whirlwind. And when I did 1941, I have to tell you, I felt like I was made of Teflon. I felt that anything I put on film was going to succeed. I felt invincible. And I think, in a sense, at that point in my life, the best thing that could have happened to me was the drubbing that 1941 got both from the critics and the public. And I tell you something, I sobered up so quickly after that was over. I just became so precious and indulgent about getting everything right. I did 20 takes on inserts that should have been done by a second unit. I shouldn't even done the insert. I shot all the miniatures myself. I directed every single miniature. I should have had a miniature unit come in and shoot the Ferris wheel rolling down the pier. I had a first unit production company, and they were being paid first unit dollars to shoot what should have been second unit miniatures with a pared down 20-person miniature unit. And I couldn't let go. I couldn't share the workload with anyone. And I learned the greatest lessons of my career just from the experience of 1941.